Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and it is a stunningly beautiful morning up here on the edge of the East Lancashire moors and Pendle Hill behind me. It's a balmy 20 degrees here already, and it's 8:30 in the morning. Of course, it's not forecast to be as hot as it was yesterday, and I hope everybody managed to find somewhere cool to keep out of the extreme heat yesterday. And of course, the climate zealots will be blaming that on climate change. But of course, it may well be climate change, but nothing at all to do with humanity. This is part of the extreme weather being triggered by the effects, the early effects of the grand solar minimum. But of course, the establishment doesn't want you to know that. It wants you to take the blame, so that you don't have too much of a problem paying increasing taxes for the fact that you are responsible for the extreme weather, whilst the corporatocracy makes out like a bandit. Talking of which, the title of this morning's broadcast is Boris, the corporatocracy, technocracy, and the future of humanity. Well, some of you will have seen my tweet or Facebook posts from about half an hour or so ago, where unfortunately I had to make the announcement that Lyn Thyer was arrested in Cornwall on Wednesday evening. Of course, she was in hiding, having decided that the option of being effectively on the run or wallowing in a French jail was a no-brainer. Unfortunately, she was picked up by Devon and Cornwall police, and she is now in Bronzefield Prison, which is in Ashford, which is on the sort of Surrey Middlesex borders. So I will be posting the address, so that if you wish to write to Lyn, unfortunately I don't have a prisoner number yet, but I will be posting the address so that if you wish to write to her, you can drop her a line of support. And you know, the irony that Lyn is in jail this morning pending her extraordinary rendition to France, because that's what it is extraordinary rendition. The European arrest warrants, excuse me, I am dripping here even at this time of the morning. Well, sweat rolling in my eyes. Anyway, so this extraordinary rendition based upon a European arrest warrant application submitted by the French. And of course, the European arrest warrant procedure was established back in the early part of this century, ostensibly to address the issue of terrorism and to prevent terrorists from seeking refuge in another European country, and thereby giving the European Union the opportunity to extradite them to wherever it was they committed their alleged offence. Well, this process is now, of course, being abused, and Lyn is in jail, and despite the fact that today on page 16 of The Sun, the headline here, "Wonder Cancer Drug Go Ahead." And, you know, I have to smile when I see these articles, because, of course, they are all PR promo pieces by the pharmaceutical industry for its latest addition to its revenue stream. And this is about a drug called Oliparib, which is given for some form of specifically female cancers, and then it's only offered after about 3 rounds of chemo, so you know, they make sure you're pretty much on the appropriate pathway before they give you the drug, so they can get some extra revenue from the NHS before the patient exits this mortal coil. Well, of course, the Wonder Cancer Drug is available, but it's not a drug, it's a natural product. It's a naturally occurring product, and this of course boosts the natural immune system, because as David has explained many times, you know, we all have cancer in our bodies, but the immune system deals with it on an ongoing basis, except when the immune system is compromised, then unfortunately the cancer is able to get a hold, and GC-MAF is effectively a reboot of that immune system. But of course, Big Pharma does not want GC-MAF getting into the protocols, because that might have, what it would have, a massive impact on the outrageous revenue streams that it gets by restricting the available treatments to radiotherapy and chemotherapy. And you notice that we always see these headlines of the wonder drug is just a few years down the road, but tomorrow never comes. And of course, one of the biggest scams in this country is the cancer charities. And as I've said many times, the power of the salary check to induce cognitive dissonance is really something else. And the cancer charity industry is worth well over £1 billion a year. And the cancer charity industry is there to protect Big Pharma, to make sure that nothing comes to market that could in any way, shape or form challenge their supremacy and their revenue streams. So if you know anyone who's working for a cancer charity, ask them about GCMAF. Of course, the likelihood is that they won't know anything about it, or even if they do, they'll deny it. And ask them to do some research on it, but they won't, because they will very quickly be shut down. So meanwhile, two people who have done their level best, they devoted their lives to trying to help people who suffer from these debilitating diseases. And yet the pharmaceutical industry, using its henchmen, the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency, which is effectively the SS of Big Pharma, masquerading as a government agency, and they will do everything to shut this down. And they have persecuted David Noakes and Lyn Thyer relentlessly now for the past, 4.5 years or so. So if we can write to Lyn to show that she has the support, she's not going to be affected by extradition for another 10 days or so, and a lot can happen in that time. And obviously I can't discuss too much of that right now, because that might just give the game away. But suffice to say, there are some very, very tenacious people on the case, and they are going to do everything they can to prevent this injustice from occurring. Meanwhile, David is due back in court at Southwark Crown Court, adjacent to London Bridge train station, exactly 1 week from today. So I shall have every intention of being there. And so if you can get to Southwark Crown Court next Friday to support David, this is another hearing in front of Justice Nicholas Lorraine-Smith. And this is where the Crown Prosecution Service will be seeking to fleece David of everything that he has ever accumulated under the Proceeds of Crime Act. But of course, the primary intention is to make sure that he does not have the resources to reinstitute his research into GCMAF, and certainly not put anything into production. So this is the corporatocracy. And Boris Johnson, in his opening speeches, has twice alluded to pushing the GMO agenda. So, this is clear indicator that Boris is in the pockets of the corporatocracy. Now, no surprise here, because, I have stated all along that getting out of the EU, of course, is absolutely crucial, but it's just the first step. Anyone who thinks that once we're out of the EU, then we're going to be lying in a bed of roses is very, very much mistaken and not paying attention, because the corporations are circling the country, looking to foist whatever products they have onto the British public, and looking to offer it on the basis of, well, you've got no restrictions now, there are no trade agreements. So yeah, basically we can put anything we want into the British market, and that includes obviously GMOs. Now, obviously there may be some underlying agenda here, because I'm sure that Boris, or certainly those around him, are very well aware of what is potentially going to occur as a result of the grand solar minimum, the effects of which we are actually experiencing right now. But this is very much the early stages of it. And as global agriculture is impacted in a very, very significant way, then there will certainly be those who think that GM is the solution, when actually it's not. And in fact, it's the opposite way in which we should go, and we should be looking at the creative ways in which we can spread responsibility for providing food products across the country, and not just put them in the hands of a few agri-farmer businesses. So, we have a lot to play for here, but Priti Patel is the new Home Secretary, and of course her reputation is that she is another extreme right-winger, and by which means that she will embrace the corporatocracy. But right now Priti Patel should also be the target of correspondence, and she should be encouraged to review the persecution that has been ongoing of David Noakes and Lyn Thyer, and look at the efficacy of GC Math. Now, meanwhile, John Smith is very much on the case here, and he has set up an opportunity for people who have had positive experiences of GC Math or any other treatment of cancer which doesn't involve chemo or radiotherapy. And what he and David Noakes are asking is that if people could make a very short, maybe just sort of 1 or 2 minute video, and then I'm going to post the link from the Common Law website that people should submit their videos to, and this will help to bring together a body of evidence which will demonstrate that the pharmaceutical industry does not have the best interests of the wider population anywhere near its ethos. Its ethos is simply about greed, greed, and more greed. And once somebody is sick, once somebody is prescribed their first set of pharmaceuticals, when they go along to the pharmaceutical sales office, otherwise known as their GP, and gets their first prescription, and from that point forward, you're on the revenue stream, and you're keeping the CEOs and the leadership team of the pharmaceutical companies in an extreme lifestyle to which they have been accustomed. I mean, to put it in perspective, the chief executive of GlaxoSmithKline earns in 1 year what, as her personal income, what David was generating in revenue from GC Math over the entire 5 years that they were operational. And of course, David and Lyn were giving a significant amount of their product away for free. And of course, the MHRA also has blood very much on its hands, because the day after the laboratories and other facilities of David and Lyn were raided in the UK, then the MHRA instructed the FDA to raid the premises of Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet. Now, Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet was certainly one of David's largest customers, if not his largest customer, and he was using GC Math to treat autism. And whilst it came as a bit of a surprise to David that GC Math could have demonstrated efficacy against autism, the results that Jeffrey Bradstreet presented to Congress, I believe on at least 2 occasions, were truly staggering. Children that had been effectively written off because they were incapable of basic communication, and they certainly weren't able to be educated in a normal school environment. And yet, after a course of GC Math, then some of these children were able to be integrated into the normal school system. Well, the day after the FDA raided Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet's facilities in the US, Jeffrey Bradstreet was found with a bullet wound to his chest, face down in a river in South Carolina, which was of course declared a suicide. So, we know what we're up against here. We're up against an extremely pernicious corporatocracy that does not have humanity's best interests at heart. And I'll give the politicians the benefit of the doubt, because they have so much to try to come to grips with that they don't have the time to do the basic research, so they simply regurgitate whatever it is the lobbyists of the pharmaceutical industry are telling them. But it's time to start that re-education process. And obviously there will be other events, hopefully organised in the next few days, and I will share those with you as I get information on the detail. But we have an opportunity here to make sure that this new administration understands that there is increasing awareness and concern about the behaviour of the corporatocracy. And then of course we have the technocracy, And this is manifesting in terms of 5G and the total control grid. And once again, Boris has alluded that, you know, Britain needs to be at the forefront of this technology. Well, if this is the weapon system that is being presented and projected, then, you know, it's what they need in place very, very quickly to prevent any kind of civil unrest. Or if it does manifest, then they can ramp up the power and make it nigh on impossible for people to go out on the streets. And if you think that that is, you know, the realm of sci-fi, then just take a look at the frequencies that are projected for the 5G network. And, you know, those frequencies are also used by the military for battlefield interrogation and for what's termed active denial, which is effectively crowd control. So the good news is that you know, the 5G awareness campaign is gaining traction, and you know, this morning I was made aware of the fact that the front page of the Sligo, which is over on the west coast of Ireland, and the Sligo local paper, the front page there is that the local authority is putting a moratorium on the erection of 5G phone masts in their community. And had a great event, or two events actually, in Swansea on Wednesday night. We did an event at 6 o'clock and another one at 8. The first event was literally a packed house, and about 50% or so for the second presentation. So, you know, great interest in South Wales, in 5G, and of course I was actually in the adjacent constituency to that of Tonya Antoniazzi, who was the MP who gave the presentation in the Westminster Hall debate on 5G a little over 4 weeks ago. And if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to watch that. It's about a 1 hour video. It's on the EH Trust, that's EH Trust, stands for Environmental Health Trust, YouTube channel, and you can watch Tonya's presentation and listen to some of the crass responses from the government. I mean, anybody basically who is in a ministerial position is there because they are regarded as a safe pair of hands. They won't rock the boat. They will simply regurgitate whatever briefing has been put in front of them because they have given up their capacity for independent thought. Well, let's see, you know, how things unfold with this new administration, but frankly, I won't be holding my breath. So the priority over this weekend, of course, if you have some time, is please write to Lyn Thyer. Her health is understandably not what it should be. She, along with David and the others that have been caught up in this persecution, have suffered horrendous abuse, horrendous assault on their fundamental humanity and their human rights. And, you know, the determination of people who have committed their lives and their own personal resources to do something for the benefit of humanity. And this is the way that the corporatocracy responds. And of course, the corporatocracy is able to respond in this way because we, the collective we, allow them to do so, because we simply stand back and just let it happen. Well, that has to change. So I'll put the address that you can write to Lyn at under this video. It might take me an hour or so before I'm able to do that. So please write to her, and if you can get to Southwark Crown Court for next Friday morning, I will be there, certainly from about 8:30. But if you can be there to support David and show Judge Nicholas Lorraine-Smith that there is enormous support for David and Lyn, and that we acknowledge that he is caught between a rock and a hard place. But, you know, hopefully Justice Nicholas Lorraine-Smith's humanity will show through. And whereas in the past he acknowledged that he was administering or presiding over a court of law, not a court of morality, well, maybe that's something he should reflect upon over the coming days. So meanwhile, it's forecast to be a little bit cooler today, so have a great weekend. I think it's going to be pretty wet over the next week or so, but I will be back with you at 8:30 on Monday morning. You have a good weekend. Take care now.